Another inspirational short story with a visualisation. What is my purpose? If you would like to do this visualisation with your eyes shut, close your eyes now and just imagine that you're walking through the grounds of a palace. And as you walk through the grounds, of course, there are beautiful trees and lovely flowers. And you can take your time. Feel your feet on the ground and stop and smell the scent of one or two of the flowers. Notice the colours, the textures, and inhale the perfume. Perhaps you gently touch the petals or the leaves. And now, moving on, feel your feet on the ground as you move towards the front door. Feel the warmth of the air on your skin. Hear the bird song. And now, as you approach the front door, you're perfectly calm and relaxed. And leading up to the big front door are steps. 10 steps. So taking those steps now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And on the door is a sign, and it says, "Welcome to the Palace of Possibilities." And you know that you can step inside. So opening the door now, feeling that handle on your hand, maybe it's cold, opening the door and going through. And inside there is the most magnificent chandelier and a huge great corridor and lots of rooms, and you're stepping on soft carpet. Choose a room now, any room. Open the door and walk inside, and you'll find that the room is decorated in exactly the way that you like it. It's furnished in exactly the way that you would furnish a room if money was no object. And stepping into this room, you find exactly what you want. I mean, it might be that the room is sunny and bright and looks out over the garden because it's summer. Or it might be that there's a big roaring fire with a sofa that you want to sit and toast your toes. Whatever you wish is here. Just settle yourself down. Make yourself comfortable. This story is about a king. Now, because it took place long, long ago, the king did not live in a palace like this. The king lived in a castle. But being a king, he wanted for nothing, as you might imagine. He could have the finest food, the finest drink. He could call for entertainment whenever he wished. He had advisors all around him. He had servants, anything he wished. But these things, they can pall after a while. And so it was with the king. He became uneasy, restless. He wasn't sure what it was, but there was something missing. He called for advisors, he called for wise people, he called for sages. They all came and went, and they tried their best to find what it was that the king was missing. It was a sort of an emptiness, an unhappiness, a not quite knowing what he was supposed to be doing, and, well, he wasn't sure. But the more he ruminated on this, the more anxious he became, until he was almost making himself ill. And in desperation, one of his advisors found a seer who lived not far from the castle. Everyone had kind of ignored this woman because it was said that she was a bit of a witch. Anyway, they brought this woman before him, and she listened to his tales of woe. And, scratching her head, she said, "I can help you, but, and there is a big but, you need to go on a long journey. And there, at the end of the journey, there is someone there who has the answer. Are you willing to do that?" "Anything," said the king. "And I have to warn you," she said, "you must go alone." "I'll do it," said the king. Now the old woman gave him a map, and taking some provisions, he set off. He started off going through the forests that surrounded the castle. Now, these forests were quite familiar to him because he hunted in them regularly. But he always had an entourage. He had never, ever known what it was like to be alone. And at night, when he put his head down to sleep, of course he was disturbed by noises. He was frightened. Anything could happen to him out here in the forest. Well, he survived the first night, and the second, and the third, and eventually he got to the edge of the forest, and he travelled across a plain. Now, this time he was out of his kingdom, and he felt very vulnerable as he went across this plain on his horse, because he was very visible, no one there to protect him. But on he went, on and on. And then he reached a great, huge expanse of water. And the map said that he must cross this water. Eventually, he found a ferryman who would take him across. And off they went. Now, the king was quite fearful of the water. For one thing, he had never learnt to swim. He'd never had any reason to. And halfway across the water, the skies darkened. There was thunder, there was lightning, there was horizontal rain, and the ferryman and he, if they wanted to communicate, they had to shout above the noise. And the little boat was rocking from side to side, and the king was holding on, his knuckles white. Well, they did make it to the other side. And the king's legs were like jelly when he got out of the boat. And now he had to walk, for he'd left his horse. He'd run out of food, and he'd run out of any money. And so it was. He had to continue walking. His legs became tired. He had blisters on his feet. All he could do for food was to forage like poor people. Occasionally people took pity on him and gave him a rabbit stew or something. And then the terrain changed, and he went across an area that was like a desert, and it was hot. It was hotter than hot, and his skin was red raw and blistered. Eventually he got to the other side, He was thin, he was unshaven, he was haggard. No one would have recognised him. In front of him, there was a big, high mountain, and it was at the top of this mountain that he was to meet the person who would help him. Exhausted, dragging one foot behind the other, he scrambled and crawled up the mountain. And eventually he got to the top, and he collapsed at the feet of a very old man with long white hair and a long white beard and piercing blue eyes. "Welcome," said the old man. "I have been expecting you. Now, come in and rest." And he invited the king into his simple hut. He gave him food, he gave him a drink, and he settled him on a simple bed. And the king slept very deeply. When dawn broke, the old man woke the king and took him outside, and they both stood on top of the mountain, looking into the far distance. And the old man said to the king, "Here is the answer to all your troubles. Every morning, say to yourself, 'Whatever will be is up to me.'" And that's the end of the story. And now, look around the room that you found yourself in. This is the palace of possibilities. And there may be something here for you. So just look and see. It will be obvious. It might be an object. It might be a little note, a message, or maybe somebody comes and tells you something. Or maybe not. And it's time now to leave this place. So, leaving the room, shutting the door behind you, you walk down the corridor to the front door. And opening the door, there are the 10 steps. You walk down the steps. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And you walk back the way that you came. So I'd like you now to become fully present of the place that you're sitting in. And if you enjoyed this story and the visualization, please click the like button and leave me a comment. I always read and reply to your comments, and I love to read them. And if you would like my free PDF on how you too can use stories, then click on the link below and it will be sent to you. Thank you very much for listening.